Whoa, yikes! Looks like Barbie's accusing me of sleeping with Ken. She's got the wrong chick, but let's give her a call just to let her know. Hi, Barbie, it's me, Yasmin. Didn't anyone ever tell you not to mess with someone with detachable feet?
1 month ago, 27-year-old Josephine Tarway was found dead in her apartment. Her family says they still don't know how she died, but those circumstances surrounding her death, they've led them to believe that something nefarious has happened.
This world is a very scary world. People are capable of a lot of things. People that you think you trust, like with everything in your heart, they will snake you for no reason. Good people need to learn how to set their boundaries and practice discernment. If you just walk around being loving and caring to everybody, you're going to get hurt every single time because everybody is not your friend. Everybody is not looking out for you. People have ulterior motives. Those were Josephine Tarway's exact words on her podcast, recorded just weeks before someone found her dead in her Atlanta apartment. She was 27 years old. She understood danger better than most people ever will. She warned her audience about trusting the wrong people. She talked about boundaries, about protection, about recognizing when someone has bad intentions. And just days before her death, she told her closest friends that someone was stalking her, following her movements, watching her every step. She knew something was coming. She felt it. She tried to prepare for it. And she couldn't stop it. September 30th, 2025. Atlanta police officers finally walked into Josephine Tarway's apartment after her family had been begging them for 48 hours to check on her. 48 hours of unanswered calls. 48 hours of messages sent into the void. 48 hours of a family in Minnesota screaming that something was wrong while bureaucracy played ping pong with their daughter's life. What officers found inside that apartment was a young woman lying naked in her bed, deceased alone. Their immediate response? No crime. Natural causes. Case closed before it ever opened. Their official explanation came fast and convenient. A diabetic episode, they said. A tragic medical emergency that no one could have prevented. Except Josephine Tarway didn't have diabetes. She had never been diabetic. She was healthy, active, vibrant. But here's what makes this classification so disturbing, so impossible to accept. When her family finally saw Josie's body before the funeral, they noticed things that police apparently chose to overlook. Her fingernails, broken and chipped. And this wasn't just any woman with damaged nails. Josie was a nail artist. Creating beautiful, intricate nail designs was her craft, her signature, her art form. Her nails were always perfect, always immaculate. For her nails to be broken like that meant she fought someone. She clawed at something or someone. She defended herself. There were scratches on her neck, visible bruises on her body, marks that didn't require forensic lighting or microscopes to detect. You could see them with your own eyes. Before we go any further into what really happened to Josie, before I show you the evidence that police refused to collect, before I reveal the stalking warnings she gave just days before her death, I need to know who's actually watching this right now. If you believe that a woman who warned her friends she was being stalked deserves more than a 48-hour bureaucratic delay and a no-crime stamp on her death certificate, then prove it. Subscribe to this channel right now and comment justice for Josie below. Make your voice count for something. And if you won't subscribe, I genuinely want to know why. Comment I won't subscribe because, and finish that sentence honestly. Tell me what it would take. Because if a case where a woman literally predicted her own death on her podcast doesn't move you to click one button, I need to understand what will. Your silence is a choice you're making right now. So is scrolling past this video. So is watching without engaging. Every single one of those is a choice that tells me whether cases like Josie's matter to you or not. Let me tell you who Josephine Tarway actually was, because the narrative you're expecting doesn't match the reality. And that's exactly what makes her death so much more devastating. Josie graduated from Bethel University with a scholarship that doesn't go to just anyone. The ACT 6 scholarship. This isn't your typical academic scholarship, where good grades get you through the door. This is a full tuition leadership award specifically designed for students committed to diversity, community transformation, and leadership development. You don't accidentally receive ACT 6. Selection committees look for young people who are going to change their communities, who understand social justice, who have vision beyond themselves. After graduation, Josie took her skills to Minnesota Public Radio, where she worked in digital storytelling and telecommunications. She wasn't making coffee or filing papers. She was creating content, building narratives, learning the craft of communication that would later fuel her own creative projects. Then she moved into advocacy work with organizations like ResCare and Public Health Solutions, dedicating herself to helping vulnerable populations who needed someone to fight for them. And in her spare time, she volunteered with Young Life, mentoring teenagers and forming deep, lasting connections with young people who saw her as a role model. This wasn't someone stumbling through life, making reckless decisions. This was someone building a foundation for long-term success, someone with purpose and direction. 5 years before her death, Josie made a decision that would ultimately put her in the crosshairs of whoever killed her. She moved to Atlanta, Georgia, chasing dreams that Minneapolis couldn't contain. She wanted to build something bigger, reach a wider audience, tap into Atlanta's thriving creative community. So she became a multifaceted entrepreneur, showcasing every talent she possessed. As a nail artist, she didn't just paint nails. She created wearable art, experimenting with techniques and designs that turned every manicure into a statement piece. She launched a YouTube channel focused on fashion and hair reviews, sharing her opinions and building a following. She co-hosted a podcast called Are You Dumb with Shada R.I., mixing humor with brutally honest conversations about pop culture, relationships, and the things people usually keep to themselves. And to support herself financially while building her brand, she worked as a dancer at Gold Rush Show Bar, located just 2 minutes from her apartment at the Chamois complex. Yes, she was a dancer. And I'm mentioning that up front because that single detail is about to become critically important for all the wrong reasons. That job, that proximity to her workplace, that visibility in a space where men watched her every night, likely put her on someone's radar. Someone who couldn't handle boundaries. Someone who didn't understand that no means no. Here's what makes Josie's death even more infuriating. She understood online safety better than most content creators, twice her age. She rarely geotagged her locations on social media. When she did post photos or videos showing where she was, she only published them after she had already left. She knew the risks of putting yourself out there on the internet. She knew that sharing your life online meant opening yourself to people with dangerous intentions. She was careful. She was cautious. She practiced the exact discernment she preached about on her podcast. Remember those words from the beginning? Good people need to learn how to set their boundaries and practice discernment. If you just walk around being loving and caring to everybody, you're going to get hurt every single time because everybody is not your friend. She did everything right. She followed every rule society tells women to follow if they want to stay safe. She set boundaries. She protected her privacy. She warned people when she felt unsafe. And she still ended up dead, naked, and alone in her apartment with police calling it natural causes. September 28th, 2025. A Saturday. Josie's family in Minnesota tried calling her. Once, twice, 10 times throughout the day. Every single call went straight to voicemail. No answer. No callback. No text message saying, hey, I'm busy. I'll call you later. Just silence. This wasn't like Josie. She stayed in touch with her family. She understood that being 1,000 miles away from home meant that a simple, I'm okay text carried weight. It gave her parents peace of mind. It let them sleep at night, knowing their daughter was safe in a city they'd never lived in. So when an entire day passed with nothing but silence, when Saturday turned into Saturday night, and still no word, the Tarwai family knew in their gut that something was catastrophically wrong. They couldn't explain it logically. They just felt it. That parental instinct that screams when your child is in danger, even when geography separates you by half the country. They made the call they believed would save Josie's life. They were already too late. The family contacted the Atlanta Police Department and requested a welfare check on their daughter. In their minds, this was simple. An officer drives to the address, knocks on the door, confirms the person is alive and safe, and everyone breathes easier. That's how welfare checks are supposed to work. That's how they work in functional systems that prioritize human life over bureaucratic procedure. But what should have been straightforward became a nightmare of red tape and jurisdictional excuses. Atlanta police told the family that the request couldn't be filed directly from out of state. It needed to originate from their home jurisdiction in Minnesota, which would then forward the request to Atlanta authorities through proper channels. So the Tarway family did exactly what they were told. They contacted Minnesota officials, explained the situation with growing desperation, filed the official request, and waited while it got processed through the system. And they waited. And they waited. 48 hours passed. 2 full days while Josie's phone remained silent. 2 days while her family sat in Minneapolis, unable to eat, unable to sleep, replaying every worst-case scenario in their minds. 2 days wondering if their daughter was hurt, trapped, calling out for help that wasn't coming. Here's what that delay cost them. What those 48 hours of bureaucratic ping-pong destroyed. Body temperature normalizes to room temperature within 24 hours of death, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint an exact time of death. Rigor mortis peaks and then starts to fade, erasing crucial evidence about positioning and struggle. DNA evidence degrades with every passing hour. Trace evidence like hair fibers and fingerprints disappears or becomes contaminated. Witnesses forget details. Surveillance footage gets overwritten on the systems. September 30th. Police finally arrived at Josie's apartment and found her deceased. But here's where the official story starts crumbling, where the lies begin stacking on top of each other like a house of cards waiting to collapse. The family was initially told that Josie's room was barricaded, that officers had to force their way inside to reach her. A barricaded door suggests someone was trying to keep people out, or maybe trying to keep something hidden inside, staging a scene to look a certain way. Then the story changed completely. Suddenly, the apartment manager had simply let them in with a key. No forced entry. No barricade. Just a routine unlock. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth mentioning. So which version is true? Because both cannot exist simultaneously. And if they lied about something as fundamental as how they entered the apartment, what else in their official report is fabricated? The Tarway family knew they weren't getting answers from Atlanta police. They knew that waiting for the system to do its job meant waiting forever, watching their daughter's case collect dust in some filing cabinet marked no crime. So they hired someone who would actually look for the truth, instead of convenient explanations that close cases quickly. Robin Martinelli, Atlanta's top-rated private investigator with 25 years of experience in the field. Her staff brings a combined 48 years of law enforcement background to every case they handle. She's been deemed an expert witness by judges across the country in criminal and civil proceedings. She's licensed to operate in both Georgia and Alabama. This isn't some amateur conspiracy theorist with a blog and a hunch. This is a trained professional who knows how to examine evidence, conduct interviews, document findings that hold up under legal scrutiny. She's testified in courtrooms. She's worked alongside police departments. She understands the system from the inside. And what she found when she examined Josie's case changed everything the family thought they knew about how their daughter died. October 2nd, 2025. 2 days after Josie's body had been removed from the apartment and taken to the medical examiner's office, Robin Martinelli and the Tarway family gained access to the residence with assistance from the leasing staff at the Shamoy complex. The apartment wasn't what you'd expect if someone had simply suffered a medical emergency and passed away peacefully in their sleep. Clothes were scattered across different rooms, not neatly folded or hanging in closets. Personal belongings were strewn everywhere in a pattern that looked chaotic, disorganized, like something violent had happened. This wasn't the scene of a quiet diabetic episode. This looked like struggle, like conflict, like someone fighting for their life. Then there was the door lock. Malfunctioning. Broken. Hanging loose in a way that meant unauthorized access was absolutely possible without forced entry, without breaking a window, without leaving obvious signs that someone had broken in. Someone could have walked right in. Someone could have been waiting inside when Josie came home that night. But the most devastating discoveries came when the family viewed Josie's body at the funeral home before the service. Her fingernails. For anyone else, you might overlook broken nails as circumstantial, as something that happens. But this was Josie. She wasn't just someone who got manicures at salon once a month. She was a nail artist. Creating intricate, beautiful nail designs was her craft, her passion, her signature. She studied techniques. She experimented with colors and patterns. Her nails were always immaculate, always stunning, always a reflection of her artistic skill. So when the family saw her fingernails broken and chipped, jagged edges, where smooth polish and perfect shapes used to be, it hit them like a physical blow. This wasn't normal wear and tear. This wasn't Josie. For a woman who took such immense pride in her nail artistry to have damaged nails like this, something had to have happened. Something violent. Something that made her claw at someone or something. Fighting to defend herself. Scratching at hands wrapped around her throat. But the broken nails weren't all. Josie's body showed visible bruising. Not subtle marks requiring special forensic lighting to detect. Not microscopic evidence that only trained examiners could identify. Visible bruising that the family could see clearly with their own eyes in normal lighting. And there were scratches on her body, including marks on her neck. Think about what leaves scratches on someone's neck. Think about what causes that specific type of injury. Robin Martinelli examined Josie's body and the apartment scene with her decades of investigative experience guiding every observation. She was careful to clarify that she's not a medical examiner. She doesn't make official determinations of cause of death. That's not her role, and she respects those boundaries. But her professional assessment, based on everything she observed, based on 25 years of examining crime scenes and reviewing evidence, in my opinion, it looked like there could have been a struggle. Not a diabetic episode. Not natural causes. Not a peaceful death in sleep. A struggle. A fight for survival. So Martinelli did what trained investigators do. She conducted interviews with Josie's friends and neighbors, gathering information about the days and weeks leading up to her death. She documented everything she believed was relevant to understanding what actually happened in that apartment. She compiled evidence, took photographs, recorded statements, and then she attempted to provide all of this information to the Atlanta Police Department, believing they would want to know what she discovered. According to Martinelli, when she explained to police that she had evidence to turn over regarding Josie's case, they instructed her to show up at the station and request an officer to come collect it. Simple enough. So she did exactly what they told her to do. She drove to the station, walked inside, made the request, and waited for someone to acknowledge that a suspicious death might warrant a second look. 45 minutes passed. No officer appeared. No one came to collect the evidence. No one seemed remotely interested in what a licensed private investigator with decades of law enforcement connections had to say about a case they'd already stamped with no crime and filed away. In Martinelli's own words, nobody came and nobody cared. The family's comparison to their home state cut deep. If this were Minnesota, you call the police, and within 5 minutes they're at your door, ready to help. Here in Atlanta, we waited 45 minutes at the station itself, and they never showed up. They couldn't be bothered to walk down the hallway. In the week leading up to September 30th, Josie confided something deeply disturbing to her closest friends. She told them she was being stalked. She said she felt unsafe in her own apartment, in her own neighborhood. She believed someone was watching her, following her movements, tracking where she went and when she came home. These weren't vague feelings or unfounded paranoia from an anxious person imagining threats that didn't exist. Josie was specific enough about her concerns that after her death, when investigators and her family began asking questions, multiple friends came forward independently with the same account. Josie had expressed genuine fear in the days before she died. She knew something wasn't right. She felt danger closing in on her. But here's what makes this so frustrating, so heartbreaking, so completely preventable. There appears to be no official police documentation of these stalking concerns before Josie's death. No reports were filed that we know of. No investigation was opened into who might have been following her. No paper trail exists that might have provided crucial context for what happened on September 30th. Did Josie confide only in friends, but not law enforcement? Did she feel uncomfortable or unsafe reporting it officially? Maybe because of her profession as a dancer? Was she planning to file a report, but simply ran out of time before whoever was stalking her made their move? These are questions that remain unanswered because the people who should be investigating refuse to look for answers. Her brother Joseph believes she might have rejected someone. Maybe someone she worked with at Gold Rush Show Bar. Maybe a customer who saw her every night and developed an obsession he couldn't control. Maybe someone who decided that if he couldn't have Josie, then nobody could. Someone who couldn't handle hearing the word no from a woman he felt entitled to. Let's be brutally honest about what could have prevented Josephine Tarwai from ending up dead in her apartment, with police calling it natural causes. If police had responded within hours on September 28th, instead of making her family wait 2 days, while bureaucracy played its games, they would have arrived at a fresh crime scene. Evidence could have been collected properly. DNA could have been preserved before degradation. Witnesses could have been interviewed, while memories were sharp and details were fresh. Surveillance footage from neighboring apartments and nearby businesses could have been secured before recording systems overrode it. If stalking reports were taken seriously in this country, if women weren't constantly dismissed as paranoid or dramatic or attention-seeking when they say someone's following them, pattern documentation could have existed. Protective measures could have been put in place. Police could have increased patrols around Josie's apartment. She could have been connected with resources designed to help stalking victims protect themselves. If welfare checks weren't bureaucratic nightmares, requiring interjurisdictional approvals and 48-hour processing delays, faster response times could save lives every single day. If Josie's profession as a dancer didn't carry a stigma that made investigators assume her lifestyle somehow invited danger or made her less deserving of protection, she might have received equal urgency and equal concern regardless of where she worked to pay her bills. And if society actually taught men to handle rejection without violence, if we raised boys to understand that women don't owe them anything, that no means no without negotiation, fewer women would end up dead for the crime of saying they're not interested. Every single one of these systemic failures contributed to Josie's death. Every single one could have been prevented. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody in law enforcement wants to acknowledge out loud, but everyone knows exists beneath the surface. Josie worked as a dancer at Gold Rush Show Bar, and to investigators who walked into her apartment, who saw where she worked listed in their initial report, that single detail likely created immediate assumptions. Assumptions about lifestyle choices. Assumptions about risk-taking behavior. Assumptions about whether this person was somehow inviting danger into her life by the nature of her employment. Her family was 1,000 miles away in Minnesota. They couldn't show up at the police station every single day demanding updates and accountability. They couldn't organize local protests or attend community meetings or make themselves a constant physical presence that reminded investigators this case mattered. That physical absence, that geographic distance, made it easier, not maliciously but practically, for the case to receive less attention than it deserved. And a preliminary determination of diabetic episode closes a case immediately with minimal effort. No detective hours spent interviewing witnesses and following leads. No lab costs for processing evidence and running tests. No pressure on clearance rates or unsolved case statistics that make departments look bad. It's convenient for everyone except the dead woman and her family screaming for justice. November 2025. Almost 2 months have passed since Josie's death. No arrests have been made. No suspects have been named publicly. No press conferences announcing breakthroughs in the investigation. Just silence from the Atlanta Police Department. The same silence that's been their standard response since September 30th. The one thing that could change everything. The one piece of evidence that could force this case back open and demand accountability is the medical examiner's report. And that report is still pending. These official determinations can take up to 90 days from the autopsy date, which means we're looking at late November, possibly early December, before we get official answers about what killed Josephine Tarwai. When that report finally comes back, it will determine absolutely everything about what happens next. If the medical examiner rules Josie's death was from natural causes, the investigation remains permanently closed. The family would have to pursue other avenues like civil litigation or independent forensic review. Spending money, they don't have to fight a system designed to protect itself. But if that report comes back and rules this a homicide, then everything changes overnight. The case gets reclassified as an active murder investigation. Resources get allocated. Detectives get assigned. Evidence gets processed. Someone becomes accountable for the broken nails, the bruises, the scratches on her neck that should have raised red flags from the very first moment officers walked into that apartment. The Tarwai family heard almost nothing from the Atlanta Police Department for weeks after Josie's death. Communication was minimal at best, non-existent most days. Updates never came. Phone calls went unreturned. They felt like they were shouting into a void that refused to answer back, screaming for someone to care that their daughter died under suspicious circumstances, and nobody seemed interested in finding out why. But then something changed. Something that reveals exactly how little police actually cared about Josie until public perception became a problem. In late October, a local news station, 11 Alive, scheduled an interview with the Tarwai family. Reporter Angelina Salcedo was going to give them a platform to share their concerns publicly, to ask the questions that deserved answers, to put Atlanta police on record about why they classified this death as no crime despite overwhelming evidence suggesting otherwise. And suddenly, just before that interview was set to air, a police lieutenant contacted the family directly. It was the first meaningful communication they'd received in weeks. Not after the private investigator tried to turn over evidence. Not after the family called repeatedly asking for updates. Only when a news camera was about to shine a light on their failures. The timing is impossible to ignore. It screams that public attention and media coverage were the only things that finally prompted a response from law enforcement. Not duty. Not integrity. Not the moral obligation to solve a suspicious death and bring closure to a grieving family. Just the fear of looking incompetent on camera, of having their failures broadcast to the community they're supposed to serve. Joseph's words carry the weight of complete exhaustion and total disillusionment with the system. It's very demoralizing. You lose faith in the police. You realize they don't actually care about justice. They care about public perception. How many other deaths get dismissed with convenient medical explanations that require no investigation and no accountability? How many families across this country trust that a no-crime classification means a thorough investigation actually happened, that someone looked at all the evidence and reached that conclusion honestly? How many mothers, sisters, daughters have died under questionable circumstances only to have their cases closed before evidence was even collected, before witnesses were interviewed, before anyone asked the hard questions that might implicate someone powerful or reveal systemic failures? The Tarwai family had education, determination, and enough financial resources to hire a private investigator and fight back against a system designed to silence them. They raised over $7,000 from 111 donors through GoFundMe to fund their search for truth. Gold Rush Show Bar, where Josie worked, contributed $600 because she was family to them, because they knew her heart and her dreams. But what about families who don't have those resources? What about families who trust the system to do its job without supervision? What about the Josies who never get justice because nobody fights for them after they're gone? Josephine Tarwai was a creator, an artist, a dreamer who believed Atlanta could contain her ambitions. She was a daughter whose absence left such a devastating hole in her family that her mother passed out from grief just hours before the funeral service. She was a sister who held everyone together, according to her brother Joseph, the glue that kept the family connected across 1,000 miles of distance. Her voice deserved to be heard when she was alive, warning people about danger and boundaries and the importance of discernment. It deserves to be heard now, screaming from beyond the grave that something happened to her, that someone took her life, that the system failed her completely. She understood danger better than most people ever will. She warned her audience about it on her podcast. She set boundaries with people who crossed lines. She practiced the exact discernment she preached about to her listeners. She protected her location online, only posting after she'd left places. She confided in friends when she felt unsafe, when she knew someone was stalking her. She did everything right, everything society tells women to do if they want to stay safe. And she still ended up dead, naked, and alone with police stamping no crime on her file without a second thought. Her family refuses to let her become another closed case, file gathering dust in some storage room, forgotten by everyone except the people who loved her. Her father made a promise at her funeral that still echoes in everything they do. I would tell my daughter Josie that her death will not go in vain. We will fight. And they're keeping that promise every single day, even when the system tries to wear them down into silence. If you know anything at all about what happened to Josie in late September 2025, you can contact Crime Stoppers Greater Atlanta at 404-577-TIPS. That's 404-577-8477. They accept anonymous tips, so you can provide information without fear of retaliation or exposure. You can also use the P3 Tips mobile app to submit information anonymously from your phone. Or you can call the Atlanta Police Department's non-emergency line at 404-658-6666 and ask to speak with someone about Josephine Tarway's case. Even if you don't have tips or insider information, you can help by keeping Josie's name alive in the public consciousness. Share this video with everyone you know. Talk about her case in comment sections and on social media. Keep the pressure on for answers, because public attention matters. We've already seen how media coverage prompted renewed communication from investigators who ignored the family for weeks. Your voice, amplified enough times, forces accountability. I want you to do something right now that might feel uncomfortable, but I need you to do it anyway. Look at Josie's face on your screen. Really look at her. Study her smile, her eyes, the life radiating from every photo her family shared. She was 27 years old. She had dreams bigger than Atlanta could contain. She warned people on her podcast that she was in danger. She told her friends someone was stalking her, and the system that was supposed to protect her shrugged and walked away, slapping a no-crime label on her death without collecting evidence or asking hard questions. If you watched this entire video, if you heard about the broken nails on a nail artist's hands, the 48-hour delay while she lay dead, the evidence police refused to collect, the stalking warnings everyone ignored, and you still won't subscribe to this channel, I genuinely need to understand why. Comment below right now. Either write I won't subscribe because and finish that sentence honestly. Tell me what it would take to earn your subscription, or subscribe and comment justice for Josie, so her family knows that people outside Minnesota actually care. So investigators know the world is watching. So cases like this can't just disappear into closed files without consequences. Your engagement, your comments, your shares, your subscription, that's what keeps cases from vanishing. That's what forces police departments to do their jobs instead of taking the easy path. Silence lets them win. Inaction tells them they can get away with classifying obvious homicides as natural causes. I showed you everything. The prophetic podcast, where she warned about danger. The 48-hour bureaucratic failure. The broken nails on hands that created art. The evidence police refused to collect from a licensed investigator. The stalking warnings from days before her death. What will you choose? Silence or justice? Comment below. Right now. Make your choice matter.